I was always fascinated with vampires when I was younger. I mean, that seems natural when The Curse of Fenric was one of my favorite Doctor Who stories. The vampiric Haemovores, with their eerie, Lovecraftian presence, gave the story a unique horror edge. Later, I discovered State of Decay, which was Doctor Who's answer to a good old-fashioned Hammer horror film, and that, of course, led me down the rabbit hole of actual Hammer horror, a genre I came to appreciate for its gothic atmosphere, rich cinematography, and often over-the-top performances. One of my personal favourites, despite its many flaws, is the delightfully bad lust for a vampire, but that's a subject for another day. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Daemon, and today we're taking a bite out of a show that, for once, actually did vampires justice. Fortunately, my fascination with vampires was perfectly timed for my teenage years in the 90s, when another show would sink its teeth into my interest. One that became one of my all-time favorites, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a supernatural drama series created by Joss Whedon, based on his 1992 film of the same name, which, let's be honest, was best left forgotten. The show, which ran from 1997 to 2003, followed Buffy Summers, Sarah Michelle Gellar, a teenager burdened with the destiny of fighting vampires, demons, and whatever other supernatural horrors lurked around the fictional town of Sunnydale. Unlike previous Slayers, who usually fought alone, Buffy surrounded herself with loyal friends, Xander, Willow, and her mentor Giles, forming the Scooby Gang to battle the forces of darkness together. The show's strength lay in its mix of horror, action, and humor, with Whedon's signature quippy dialogue keeping things from getting too grim. It also had a clever metaphor at its core: high school as literal hell. Whether it was the monstrous teachers, soul-sucking relationships, or the lurking dangers in the shadows, every episode took a classic horror trope and made it relatable to teenage life. The first season, running only 12 episodes, served as an introduction to this world. It had a simple premise. Buffy, the reluctant Slayer, wants to be a normal teenager, but destiny has other plans. The season's overarching villain, the Master, was a delightfully theatrical vampire who spent most of his time trapped underground, plotting his escape. It all built up to a final confrontation where Buffy momentarily died, fulfilling a prophecy, only to be revived and take down the Master in a satisfying showdown. Despite being a strong start, the first season wasn't without its flaws. The special effects were, let's say, ambitious for the time, and some of the Monster of the Week episodes were a little on the cheesy side. Teacher's pet, I'm looking at you. But what it lacked in budget says it made up for in heart and creativity. The chemistry between the cast, especially Buffy and Giles, was a highlight, and the show quickly established its signature balance of horror and humor. This is probably the birth of the modern TV story arc. Well, I say that, but if I'm honest, it really started with Doctor Who's Key to Time arc, a 6-story adventure that had an overarching narrative with the White and Black Guardians bookending the season. That idea evolved with Turlough's redemption arc, the trial of a Time Lord, and Ace's gradual backstory reveal in the McCoy era. But here, in Buffy, is where I think the story arc was truly perfected. Most TV series up until this point were largely episodic, with occasional two-parters or loose continuity at best. Buffy changed that by weaving an overarching narrative throughout the season, giving weight to events and character growth in a way that hadn't been widely embraced in mainstream television. The format allowed for a balance between standalone Monster of the Week episodes and larger ongoing conflicts, something that would later be refined in shows like Alias and even make its way back into Doctor Who when it returned in 2005. Even in its early days, Buffy stood out from the crowd. The show wasn't afraid to take risks, and while the first season was a bit rough around the edges, it laid the groundwork for the brilliance that followed. It set up an engaging world, introduced memorable characters, and gave us a protagonist who was strong, vulnerable, and witty in equal measure. Over the years, I've revisited Buffy many times, and I still enjoy it. I have my favorite episodes and seasons, and I might take a deeper dive into them in the future. But for now, I can say that Buffy the Vampire Slayer had a solid start, proving that sometimes great things come with a wooden stake and a snarky attitude. And with that, I'll leave you with this. Vampires may live forever, but Hollywood's obsession with remakes sure won't. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.